ethnographic representations of race and sex and kin and education. And what's unique about these two papers for me, although I didn't see the other ones, but from my understanding of the program is that these are personal kind of autobiographical reflections, which actually are also brought into rich relief with very intellectual understandings of the topics that they talk about in relation to their lives. The two panelists are my students from gender studies at SFU and from sociology at KPU, two places where I teach. And before I turn it over to the amazing panelists that we have here today, I just want to say that autoethnography has become a really important pedagogical tool in my repertoire for teaching, particularly about race, because I want to share with you that early in my teaching career, I came to understand that I was teaching about race totally wrong. And how I understood that was because I would often have students in my intro classes asking me the question, do white people experience racism? And a lot of students would say that white people did. And so I understood that I was teaching that wrong. And that what I need to teach about is race as a system that maintains white privilege. And if I was going to teach race like that, then I would need to actually ask some serious questions about myself as a white instructor in the university. And what I needed to do was transform my pedagogical approach away from telling towards listening to my racialized students about their experiences. So the papers in this panel represent autoethnographic, that is a methodology that really asks the person to answer the question, who am I in this world? And by creating assignments like this, I really do have the privilege of learning about things that I do not have access to as a white settler. And so in terms of the autobiographical contributions that these amazing students offer, they also offer an incredible intellectualism around understanding their experiences and placing them within intellectual discourses and academic discourses that really bring into sharp relief the significance and meaning of their stories. So I am thrilled to first introduce Amrit, Dhillon, and secondly Navi to give their papers today. And if we have time, we were also keen to know of your reflections and your questions. So please go ahead.
I will be sharing what does an autoethnography mean to me. Autoethnography to me is the understanding and critique of societal, cultural, and political beliefs through my personal experiences. I believe that my experiences challenge the dominant South Asian ideology on the role of women. It is my contention that the majority of South Asian women are not allowed to pursue the opportunities that men are. At the age of 21, I became the main income earner for my family. Being raised by a single mother shaped me as a human being that I am today. I am confident and happy to be an independent woman. On my path of becoming the person that I am today, I have witnessed and endured discrimination and ill treatment because of my gender, race, and class. It has been a learning curve for me to acknowledge that I have to shape my life with the choices that I make, irrespective of the fact that my decisions may not be respected and accepted by the members of society and my family. I have seen countless women live under pressure of duties. There is an expectation of duties imposed on Indian women that affects our thinking, decisions, and actions. Living as a racialized gendered person in a developed foreign country that now I happily call my home. I have value of having my own opinions. While reflecting back on the past 27 years of my life, I believe I have unknowingly, for a very long time, internalized sexism and misogyny. This self-healing expedition has allowed me to extrapolate an intersectional approach for my own life experiences into this autoethnography. In September 2006, at the age of 15, my parents, my brother, and I immigrated to Canada. I always thought we moved here from India for a better quality of life and improved circumstances at home. Little did I know that my father's cruel, rude behavior would stay the same. One day, he got angry and started to scream. It was a freezing cold, snowy December night, and he stepped outside in shorts. My mother started to panic, cry, and begged my father to come inside. We apologized in hopes that he would stop acting out, even though we hadn't done anything. He was angry because of his own nature. That night, I told my mom that we aren't living here anymore. We have to move away for ourselves. So my mother, brother, and I left the environment in hopes of a peaceful home. 13 years later, here I am, happy and passionate about what I do. After the separation, my mother raised my brother and I on her own. At this time, I naturally believed it was my duty to help my mother. I still remember waking up early in the morning and starting work at 4 a.m. to make coffees and greet customers at the corner gas station. My mother always woke up to walk with me to work each morning. I finished work just before 8 a.m. and then quickly ate breakfast and started school at 8:30. I used to work some evenings and all weekends. I learned to work hard from a young age. It gave me the strength that motivates me even today. My mother, being an immigrant and single mother, had a tough time getting hired, even though she had a master's education from India. According to Statistics Canada, women like my mother are called visible minority women who experience one of the biggest wage gaps due to their gender, race, and lack of Canadian job experience. She was consistently paid less as compared to her co-workers. Visible minorities are often treated differently because of their race. Eventually, my mother stopped working and stayed at home as she dealt with depression and loneliness because we had been away from our relatives, friends, and not made any new friends in this country. I related to my mother as I had experienced loneliness at high school. I struggled through high school as I was bullied and made fun of for my clothes and my appearance. When I was a teenager, I wasn't able to adapt myself to a new culture. It is even harder for older immigrant women like my mother to get used to a new way of living life. She was confused and wasn't able to express herself freely. I had seen my mother struggle financially, emotionally, and mentally. I made her struggles and hardships my source of strength. When I was little, I often heard my mother say that she wished she was a man. When I was little, I never fully understood what she meant. Her married life was filled with difficult times, which was opposite of her childhood. She was the youngest of all her siblings and was pampered and loved like a boy. She was allowed to dress in boys' clothes, which was unheard of in the villages of Punjab at the time. She was given all the privileges like her elder brothers, which none of her other sisters had ever benefited from. After a loving and happy childhood, she was put into a situation of abuse, torture, and trauma with my father. My mother's struggles made me strong. I knew from a young age to not depend on others for my happiness. Happiness for me is knowing that I can earn a living, have a home to live with my mother and brother, and enjoy meals together as a family. The credit for my values and good upbringing goes to my mother. Each child is different. My brother and I have different personalities, but something that my brother and I share in common is a good heart. We have always cared for people and respect everybody. I would guess my brother has washed more dishes than I have because my mother was adamant in our home for both us to be treated equally. In 2012, when I started working as an education assistant with Surrey School District, new knowledge came my way. I learned about the history of Indigenous people in Canada, which led me to my understanding of my role as a settler on their land. It is important for me to respect the people on whose land I've achieved so much in life. Learning about the injustices faced by Indigenous women in Canada reminded me of overt racist remarks overheard in high school. I was victimized by other girls, a lot of them of South Asian descent. In high school, because of my accent, as it wasn't Canadian, as I dressed, and because I was from India, so they often made fun of my clothes, excluded me from class group discussions, and called me names. While my self-belief wavered in those moments, my mother's support always provided a safe haven. It is important for South Asian societies to realize the necessity of supporting women in their endeavors and not continuing to sow seeds of self-doubt in their minds. Many different sets of ideologies are forced upon women in my culture, but I have always raised my voice against anything I didn't feel for me to do. I always question instances where I'm expected to do something just because societal gender roles dictate that a woman should do a task. Since I was a little girl, I often heard people around me say, the best way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Give him some good food and he will love you. No, I have never practically had the time to be home to learn cooking. If I'm hungry, I know how to cook a meal for myself. A man should love me for my personality and not my cooking skills. In the meantime, everyone in our country needs to understand that oppressions of racialized women are different from that faced by white women. Women of color from different ethnic backgrounds face daily challenges like unemployment, lack of support in learning English, which holds them from integrating into Canadian workforce field. Since I have been in Canada, I have unconsciously learned to pronounce my name in a Canadian accent. I always believed that Caucasian people won't be able to pronounce my name correctly. After watching a YouTube video of a substitute teacher, I realized all these years, by pronouncing my name wrong, I have internalized racism. A person's name should be pronounced the way it is supposed to be in the person's native language or culture. Now I have made a point of saying my name in the right way, and that if people can say it correctly, it's even better. Intersectionality is the inclusion of women from all races and backgrounds. Women should feel marginalized due to their race. Women shouldn't feel marginalized due to their race and class. As an immigrant in Canada, I was constantly aware of my position as an outsider. The actions of my high school peers reminded me of my distinction from them. Beginning my career with school district brought about a realization of the removal of Indigenous cultures and populations. Being aware of oppressions faced by Indigenous people created an understanding of my past frame. This brought about the realization that I need to continue to strive to fulfill my dreams and ambitions without expecting support from anyone else. Feminism indigenously developed from oppressive circumstances where women don't need white saviors. Interestingly, all these lines of intersecting macro-social oppressions that I have experienced as forms of trauma and violence in my everyday life have actually shaped an understanding of feminism that I have now. To sum up my approach towards life, I have been confronting societal issues within my culture, which has helped me in identifying the feminist hidden deep somewhere in my soul. My story is a reflection of strength and potential for South Asian youth to create social change in a world that limits us by saying, you're backwards. In fact, it is because I've experienced these oppressions that I'm a powerful feminist. Thank you.
So one autumn day, my partner noticed that my energy was off. We're sitting in the car, we're driving, and he looks at me and asks me, like, what is wrong? And kind of on the verge of tears, I was like, I feel super homesick, even though we're home right now. And I remember, like, it felt like my physical heart was like ripping in half. My heartbeat was so loud in my ears, and all of a sudden I felt so lost and dazed that something just didn't feel right. He obviously knew that I was having like a panic attack or an anxiety attack or something was coming about me. And he just looked at me and asked me, like, if you could be anywhere right now, where would you be? And all of a sudden my mind became so clear. And this poem kind of just like came to my head. And I'm realizing that I'm actually gonna share my poetry with other people that is into me. So I'm kind of like freaking out. But that's kind of like what came to my head. Oh. Okay, there's a good. Okay. So you asked me where I wanted to be. I looked into his reddish brown eyes and I said, I want to be in Punjab. I crave to sit where my ancestors have sat. I want to dig my toes into the earth where my placenta was buried until I'm ankle deep. I want my feet to sprout roots. I want my legs and torso to become the trunk of a pipal tree. My chest, the foundation for the branches. I want the leaves to flutter and chime in the wind, creating the type of sound that would bring anyone's soul some peace. I want to be decorated in yellow flowers. I want the elders to sit under me for shade. I want the village children to play around me and swing from my branches. I want to see the sunsets and sunrises on the 5 rivers. I want my thirst to be quenched by the monsoon. I want to be where each day feels like a gift from the divine. I want to live as long as life lets me and enjoy the world I'm from. I want to be in Punjab. Okay, so, Sat Sri Akal everyone, and hello. My name is Navi, and I'm going to be doing an auto-ethnographic presentation about how there are deep roots and causes to the constant splitting of our, I say South Asian, but I'm really focusing on Punjabi identities, just because I do talk about a lot of events that have taken place in Punjab. I would like to, as I started to say, that's kind of like where I kind of go with this. So a little bit about me. I was born in Punjab and immigrated to Vancouver at a really young age. I grew up in a very traditional Punjabi Sikh family in the Western world. Growing up in the West and also belonging to a traditional Punjabi family, I always kind of felt awkward or out of place. There was this constant tug of war that I felt was always taking place in my life. It was always difficult to find a sense of self that felt complete. And growing up, I always felt that there was this constant negotiation between all aspects of my identity, negotiation between parents, culture, religion, history, Punjabi and Western patriarchy, language, be traditional or westernized, and everything in between. I also want to point out that I don't blame my parents for any of this, not because I'm trying to be a good Indian daughter, but I don't blame them because they had the task of raising Punjabi children out of Punjab, and they were the first ones to do so in their lineage. And that's kind of a life-changing task, and they were also consumed by the fact that they had to pull their entire families out of poverty. So they had their own things going on. But all these determinants played a role in the continuing splitting of my identity, and it was really difficult to feel whole and balanced. And then one day, I signed up for Becky's class, and that's how I know her. And it honestly changed my life. And it's really hard for me to say that a class changed my life. I feel like it doesn't really happen very often. But it really made me see my relationship with my relationship with my existence in such a deep and meaningful way. And that's how the idea of this presentation kind of came about. At first, I felt really disheartened by the fact that it took me 23 years to realize that being a Punjabi woman encompassed all the reflections of the mothers before me. All of us sitting in this space right now today sharing our energy is the evidence and the proof that of their survival, their existence, and their knowledge. So I'm going to try my best to take you on this journey with me, show you my reflection through ethnographic exploration of my culture, dreams, geopolitics, and history. These lenses create a deeper and meaningful consciousness that acknowledge Punjabi people, especially women who have survived genocides, colonization, communal violence, war, and so much more. And we are still trying to survive and resist even today, and it's followed us to the West. I would like to share with you today that there's a constant splitting of Punjabi women's identities and how it's so difficult to feel whole in a world that's constantly reinforcing the splitting. I would even argue that these forces that are causing the splitting are all sources of trauma that have destroyed our capacities to understand ourselves, and this is how colonial legacies live on. After years of searching and questioning and being shut down, attending Becky's class, talking to all the aunties and Navis and Navis. I mean, I've also talked to uncles too. I mean, sometimes they seem whack, but like they have like some good knowledge here and there. But asking overtly, like, what does the white man not want me to know? Questioning what's been lost. Is it possible that it can be found? And just going into this like crazy, great, like aggressive downward spiral. Like, I need to know everything that I don't know. And I remember asking Becky one day, like, how do I do that? Like, how do I know? Like, I don't know how to do that. And then I realized that it all kind of comes down to partition, Punjab, and placentas. I'm getting really excited every time I say the word placenta. But anyways, yeah, I'll go into that.
We're like in sync.
Yeah. So you might be wondering, like, how partition, Punjab, and placenta are all related. In a physical way, it's kind of obvious. All three represent like a dividing. Geopolitically, how we are all cut from placentas. How we're geopolitically, like they make sense, like partition and Punjab, and placentas were cut physically from them. So that's like the splitting. But they're also connected in a not so obvious way, in an emotional, spiritual, intergenerational way, in a way that is so complex and intricate that I'm still trying to figure it out. It's important to notice that it's complex on purpose because of colonization, imperialism, our families surviving all these mass atrocities, settling, growing up in the West. They all play a part to make the design confusing and destroy our ability to understand ourselves. So I'm going to explore these three vignettes. So I invite you to go on this journey with me, even though I'm still figuring it out. I don't have it all figured out, but that's fine. So yeah. So the first two vignettes I'm going to talk about are partition and Punjab. So the Radcliffe line, to me, feels like a mirror. When you look at it, you see yourself, but everything about your reflection looks and feels distorted, although you know it's you, but not you at the same time. And this is kind of like where the geopolitical part kind of plays in. I don't really know when I first learned about partition. I feel like I always had a sense of what it was because I always hear adults talking about it growing up. Especially my father was a refugee, my mother was an immigrant, and growing up in Canada, my dad made it really important that we knew where we came from, we knew our history, we knew our language, and he really reinforced it into us. So I always felt like I had a sense of what being Indian or Punjabi meant. I think I was about 8 or 9 when I first asked explicitly, what partition was and why did so many people die. And I still remember the look on my parents' face, the type of look as if they had lost everything. I remember feeling terrified, although I didn't really fully understand. Partition still terrifies me as its remnants are still continuing in contemporary time. The partition happened and also partition didn't just happen in Punjab, but I do just focus on the Punjabi aspect just because that's what I can relate to. In Punjab, August 1947, but the remnants of the events live on in our bodies, our actions, and our psychology. And an invisible line has had one of the most visible effects on our existence. The Radcliffe line outlines the physical divide between Punjabi Pakistani women and Punjabi Indian women. The line has also been internalized into our physical bodies and has been absorbed into our minds, hearts, and wombs. Often when Punjabi women, or in my case, have spoken up about the partition, there's always this extremely uncomfortable silence. It almost feels as if we're connected mind, body, and spirit and can see into a collective pool of memory. And how Menon and Bazin phrase it, partition is a metaphor for irreplaceable loss. This irreplaceable loss is still continuing and happening today. Punjabi women are constantly being partitioned in their everyday lives, a constant feeling that there is a lack of closure with the past and a difficulty in finding a place in the present. The collective memories will remind oneself of grief that just doesn't go away. This is the part that is kind of difficult to explain. That's why I said, I don't have it all figured out. But I feel like I have felt this, maybe others have felt it too. But the physical reaction that occurs in your body when you know that you're only from half your motherland, it's not the type of jealousy you feel when you have to share your mother with a sibling or a cousin. But it's like this deep, lingering ache that something just doesn't feel whole. Learning about Punjabi culture and knowing for a fact that my ancestors existed in what is now known as contemporary Pakistan and India. The radical line destroyed our ties and our ties with the land and the places which are significant to our heritage. And if your motherland is split into two, how could you ever feel whole? And the haunting memories of what occurred in Punjab are passed down to us intergenerationally, and these memories have also followed us to the West. So I'm going to start off, so now I'm going to get into placentas and how they're all kind of all related. But before I start this section, I'm going to start off with another poem, so you don't have to hear me like blabbing, because that's kind of like fun. Anyways, okay. The blood of my ancestors runs through my veins. I can hear the cries, desperation, agony. I can feel how out of breath they are. They've been running. I can feel the violations on their body. I see them when I look in the mirror. The bits and pieces of them remain in the air, water, and earth. They are never gone. They are in me. I can hear them calling each other. I can hear them calling me. I can smell the burning from the rebellion and separation. What we do for freedom. Why does the pain remain? This is what you call trauma, traveling through time and space to meet me in the compilation of my DNA. Okay, so placentas. Okay, so you're probably wondering how placentas all fall into this. So last semester, as I mentioned, I took a class with Becky, and we spent a few weeks talking about placentas, and this is where my obsession with placentas grew. So one day in Becky's class, she asked us, what happened to your placenta? And this is literally where my mind and obsession went crazy. Like every single day, I go home and talk to my friends, and I'm like, I'm obsessed with placentas. But if you didn't know, your placenta is actually made out of the exact same DNA as you. At conception, when roughly the first 100 cells form, yes. So they kind of split in half, and one becomes you, which is like the baby and fetus, and the other one becomes your placenta. And the crazy part is that majority of us don't know anything about placentas, and I didn't know anything about placentas until I took this class. And stuff like this in the world is the part that makes me question all the things that I don't know. It makes me really nervous and kind of fearful, why I don't know, why I don't know, who doesn't want me to know. So that kind of crazy. So that day I went home and asked my mom, Mom, what happened to my placenta? And I was like, what's a placenta? And I'm the thing at the end of the cord. Anyways, I didn't have the Punjabi word for it until she told me, which is old. And she told me that when I was born in rural Punjab, and so she told me when the midwife cut me from my placenta that my nanny placed it into a proper dish, and she walked outside into her courtyard and buried it under our family's guava tree. So the woman in the orange suit is my mother, and the woman in the pink suit is my nanny. And that's a guava tree. I don't know. I'm sure people know what a guava tree is. If you don't, that's what it looks like. Fruit's great. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So how do placentas relate to partition Punjab? So I would argue that placentas play a significant role in the intergenerational inheritance of trauma. Explaining this, I'm explaining this in a very simplistic way, and there's a lot of scientific research, and I'm also pulling and drawing from Becky's article that she talked about in our class, Fetal Maternal Interaction, Politics of New Placental Biologies. Kind of what I got from it really was that pregnancy truly is an intergenerationally connected phenomenon. There's much discussion about how pregnant people alone cannot be fully responsible for the health of their pregnancy. I was like, oh my God. Whatever that might mean. Pregnant people's diets, emotions, stress levels, life experiences all play a part in the health of a fetus. What I find fascinating, or what blew my mind completely, is that pregnant people are also affected by what their mothers and grandmothers and so on before them experienced, felt, and were exposed to while pregnant. I was like, okay, this is real life. And essentially all this information and like emotion, trauma, love, experiences, food, all pass through, I'm sorry, the placenta. To me, this means that the placenta is the connection between the past and the present, meaning that, you know, when we were connected to our placenta, or like when I was connected to my placenta, physically, that was like my physical connection to all of my grandmothers before me and passing down their existence into me. And this is how I also feel that trauma of the partition, the grief that we feel is transferred through us via placenta. Oftentimes, I mean, I've asked my grandmother, my nanny, often, like, her experiences of partition, which she doesn't talk about. But that's just because the pain is just so massive that it silences her. But I feel that I can feel her silence in just in my existence. I also believe that the placenta prepared me for the Western world. Growing up as an immigrant in a country that doesn't want you, you need to be strong, resilient, otherwise it's impossible to survive. I've been asked time and time again where all my strength comes from, but I've never really been able to answer this question, nor did I really understand. But I feel this strength has always felt familiar, but I honestly believe that it came and comes from all the mothers and grandmothers before me. The fact that they survived it all is the only reason why I exist today. And their energy has given me the strength to survive and flourish in the West. To be the, you know, my sister and I are the first women in our entire lineage to have so many opportunities, to work outside the home, to go to university, to pursue our individual dreams has been like the most incredible honor I think I could have ever had in life. And I can never forget whose back and whose womb this privilege has come to me by. Yeah. So, I'd like to thank you for giving me the honor and privilege of presenting in front of you all today. To me, time is one of the most valuable things that we have, and so I'd like to thank you so much for giving me your time.